Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew O, and today I'll be going over how to innovate through an effective brainstorm methodology and how to de-risk the solutions that you come up with in order to build successful products. So to give you some background information on myself, I am currently a product manager at ByteDance here in Singapore, working on disruptive SaaS products that we're building from scratch. Prior to joining ByteDance, I was actually at Grab. Grab is kind of like the Uber of Southeast Asia. And there I was also working as a product manager for the trust and safety team, where I had the pleasure and opportunity to travel across Southeast Asia to learn more about the diverse cultures, people, and daily life that we were trying to improve with the multitude of services that we offered. And then prior to Grab, I was a founder. So I did 3 startups over 5 years. Cool. So let's get right into it. Now, I think most people would actually agree that when it comes to preparing for a brainstorm session, people would often say that the preparation is actually the hard part, and that the brainstorming should relatively actually be easier because the answers should all kind of be there if you've done your research right. Now, in theory, this is actually true. It is easy because you've narrowed your mind and you're focused into what I call a trap. And that trap is having an easy answer wherein the constructs of your experiences has actually led you to a very simple truth. And so while it may seem right, because it mostly is, it is actually the logical solution to the problem that you spent so much time researching on, from the competitive analysis to talking to your target users to listing out their problems and the requirements and many, many more. Most of the time, that solution that you've come up with and that comes so easy to mind won't actually stand out from the incumbents. It won't be a 5 or 10x in value to the user, nor would it be anything truly new, exciting, or disruptive. So while your proposed solutions may not be wrong, it is probably more than likely not going to be any better or much better than what's actually already out there. So today I'll be essentially teaching you how to unwind your mind to foster innovation that goes from the traditional principles of product management and brainstorming. And today I'll be teaching you some tricks you can use in order to foster those creative ideas and valuable innovations. So for effective brainstorming, it actually does require a top-down approach. If you are a product manager at a company, but I also think this is very helpful to founders as well, or if you're just someone building a product or you're thinking of getting into something. So I think it starts from the mission statement and it goes all the way to de-risking your proposed solutions by talking to your users and having them try the solution design and trying to get that and extrapolate that valuable feedback from them. Now, what is very important here to know is that we are trying to set you up for success with this methodology. So it's important that you follow each and every step. However, you can also choose to repeat certain steps. That's totally fine if you need to get another run at it. Now, before we actually get started, I just wanted to go over some rules. So the first is that I would actually advise you not to do heavy research on your competitors. Now, if you already have, that's fine. Just know that you might be a little bit more likely to lean into the trap of being a little bit knee deep in narrow thinking, when you're going to be a little bit more biased towards the solutions that we're going to get to down the road. Now, if you've already been in this spot, or if you're in this spot right now, then maybe it's just best to try not to reference your competitors when you're going to start brainstorming solutions. Now, I will say it's actually okay to have insights. So if you're trying to build more insights based on the topic you want to build for, or this domain that you want to build for, then I suggest you maybe try 2 different things. Now, the first is to try the product yourself as a new unhabituated user. So for example, maybe you're working on a product management team that's working on social media in the social media space. It might be okay for you to actually try Instagram or try Twitter or try, the Facebook platform. Trying something for the first time as an unhabituated user actually allows you to see things with a heightened sense of problem identification before everything becomes familiar to you. And with that view, it's actually going to be easy to see what could have been done better. Now, this might actually seem a little bit contradictory to what I'm telling you or what I told you before about narrow thinking, easy solutions coming to you. But I do think that as an unhabituated user, not only will you see problems a little bit better or a lot more easier, but you'll also be able to see how things could be done a lot better in the experience of the user. So that's where I think it's actually a little bit critical and where that can really come in handy. Now, if you need to build some insights, there is another way that you can also get that, and that's just by talking to your target users casually. Just ask them non-leading questions. So for example, instead of asking, did you get mad when you use this app? Instead, you would probably want to ask something a little bit more open-minded, such as, how did you feel when you use this app? So what you're trying to do here is avoid trigger words that can lead your the user that you're interviewing towards a biased answer, something that could trigger an emotional response. And so again, that has to do with narrow thinking. And to add more to the concept of narrow thinking, and I'll tell you a little bit more about this now, our minds are always looking for the easiest answers when it comes in return for the least amount of effort. And so that's actually just how we're wired as human beings. We're wired to expend the least amount of energy for the highest ROI that it can obtain. And so by that notion, when you think about product innovation, you can probably rely on the principle that the most innovative ideas are going to be the ones that help contribute to what I call a fat, lazy America, where everything is actually served to them. And so again, people are lazy, not by nurture, but by nature. And it's just how we're wired. And if you just think of some examples of, products that do just that, we have Uber, where you have rides and food delivered to you. You have maybe other services such as Craigslist, where you just have one place to go to get any kind of this one size portal where you can get anything sold, where you can buy anything, where you can easily get like a handyman if you need to repair your apartment or if you need to rent an apartment. These kinds of solutions, they do really well because it's taking a lot of the load off you. Whereas, the alternative would be you manually going through some really hard process to actually get that job done, reach your goal, or it could be a very expensive thing to do. And so to kind of like visualize this concept that I just mentioned a little bit more, I just wanted to show you this to kind of exemplify that. So this image is essentially from the movie WALL-E. If you guys haven't watched it, it's a really cute movie. I would really suggest you do. But the core concept here that really stuck with me since I was a kid was the humans. And the humans in this movie, as you can see, they're sitting on these floaty chairs. They're really fat. One of them has a drink in their hand, and both of them are just totally glued to the screen. And so what happened in this society is that technology made their lives so comfortable that they literally did not have to get off the chairs. They were able to just survive by sitting down. And so I think their joints got disjointed and they literally cannot walk anymore because everything is served to them and their needs are all met. I personally believe that's unfortunately the future where we're kind of headed towards. It might not be over exaggerated like that, but again, I think technology is there to improve people's lives. And that is kind of like the end state that we might be headed towards. So let's get started with the methodology. As I mentioned before, this actually starts with the mission statement. So this is actually really important because it provides the direction of what you're going to be building for. Now, many product teams either don't abide by a mission statement or they actually might not even have one. But the mission statement is effectively stating what is this ideal world that we're looking to achieve. Not all mission statements are equal in value. In fact, most companies have something ambiguous, long, tedious, And they might not even be that easy to comprehend, nor does it even reflect an ideal world that they're actually looking to achieve. So if you're on a team or company that either doesn't have a mission statement or is lacking one that is actually quite clear in that ideal world, then for the sake of the brainstorming exercise, you could actually just go ahead and define one yourself. Facebook, I think, has a great example of a mission statement that's pretty clear, and that dictates the company's overall direction and strategy of what they're trying to do. And so that mission statement here is essentially to empower people to build community and bring people closer together. The second step in this methodology is the product strategy. And so I think it's important to consider this as it ties back to the goal of the mission. Now, the product strategy can be many things, but there's only really two things that I'm looking to get answers for. I think here, what I'm really looking for is why are we doing this and what is the goal that we're trying to achieve? So for the sake of this exercise, I'm going to be breaking this down into two simple things that we need to answer further. And that is, what is the stage of the company? And what is the key insight that we have to make this timing of the attack worth it? And that will usually lead to what is it that we're trying to do, or what should we do? So let's quickly dive into each one. Let's start with the stage of the company. If you are a startup, you are more than likely, and if you haven't hit that high growth stage, it's probably because you're going to be looking for product market fit. So product market fit means that adoption and engagement are likely going to be your North Star metric goals, and the goal overall for the company that you're going to be looking into. So for a company like Facebook, in contrast, something that is far more mature, or could be losing its hold on its more mature, loyal audience, their goal might be centered more around retention. So depending on the state of the company, you're going to more than likely have these different types of high-level goals that you're going to be looking to contribute to. Now, these goals are important to set because, again, it will point towards a key metric and they will help de-risk your company's current situation and the product that you're going to be building for. Now, the second thing that we need to look into is the key insight. And so really what we're looking for here is, what is the key insight that we're looking for among the lines of timing? So timing is super important, and I'll give you an example of this. You could have a brilliant solution, such as flying taxis, to overcome this really, this tremendous problem of overcoming traffic, road traffic, and safety issues. And maybe if you were to give another example to make this a little bit more contextual, LA has probably one of the worst traffics in the world. You're going to be in the car on that highway for hours. You could be on that car for hours on the highway. And in light of that, especially with something a little bit more congested like Vietnam, with all the motorbikes running around, it's very dangerous and you can get hit really easily. So flying taxis is actually a pretty safe solution. It's actually a very innovative, great solution. I think it's going to be in the future. But unfortunately, I think the general public and the government might not yet be ready to accept the solution. And it could actually take even a decade to get past the regulation. So the timing is important because in this case, you're going to be doomed to fail unless you really want to be patient enough and wait that long. So again, you're looking for some key insight that makes this battle plan worth investing in, this direction worth investing in, this domain that you're going to be in worth investing in. And so another key example of an insight, and I'm going to make this up, could be maybe both Facebook and Instagram platforms are losing its relevancy in young millennials. And it's almost non-existent to the Gen Z users in the world. And this is because Facebook prioritized monetary gains through its algorithm on its newsfeed, which led to a poor experience. And that also made the platform no longer about people. Again, that kind of like derailed the whole Facebook mission of bringing people closer together. And likewise for Instagram, when they implemented stories, when they tried to copy Snapchat, the platform were, I think maybe, for example, Facebook users had escaped too because Facebook kind of got tarnished. Is that like Instagram itself started to lose its touch on the closeness of people and the friends, the personal friends that you had, and now its users are losing interest in the platform overall. And so that is why now is a great time to build something fun, creative, and new to help users feel more closely connected together. So that, I think, is an example of a great key insight that will help de-risk the direction that you'll be taking. And for that, you could be talking to users to really get that insight. You yourself could have actually been using the product to actually learn that insight. So yeah, that key insight I think is going to be really important. Now, who are we building for? I think this is very obvious. We do need to clearly define who we're going to be building this product for. And I think that most of the time, a demographic segmentation can actually come off weak here. So what you're going to be looking for is actually something a little bit more specific, but still very high level. So I'll give an example. For ride-hailing apps, how you want to segment this is probably just by the simple virtue of two user segments. They're simply riders and drivers. For Instagram, you have friends, influencers, and maybe companies. So again, high level, but still quite specific. And so remember that we want to avoid the trap of getting ourselves into narrow thinking when it comes to the solutioning that we're going to get to later on. So now here we're going to have to then define the problem statements for the user segment that you selected. So in the previous step, you would have already selected the user segments that you're going to be targeting. Now let's decide. So after you decide which user segment you're going to be actually gunning for, you are then going to want to look into what specific problems does that user segment have. What problems do they experience today, and what are the alternatives and incumbents? And what problems do they actually have with the alternatives or incumbents? Now, the trick here is actually to rely more on your strategic thinking, which you would have already done back in step 2. So for example, we actually understood that Instagram and Facebook are losing its relevancy with its users because it's no longer about people, and it's starting to become very boring and stale. And so people might be churning, or they're kind of like in this prime state where they're actually ready to leave the platform. And so to define the problem statements, we are going to be using a timer to provide enough stress on yourself to give your brain a jolt of pressure and energy to think. And this should actually allow your neuron plasticity to increase as you brainstorm and to fish for those actual problems. So an example of problem statements could be, and I'm just going to make this up for Instagram. Users are no longer posting as much content on their profile pages because influencers have created a high bar in comparison. Another example could be friends don't care about basic photos such as food shots that are shown in stories, which comprises of maybe over 50% of the content that people are getting in stories today. Another problem statement could be friends are actually disinterested in the core value of staying connected with their friends because it's actually no longer fun. So these are examples of 3 assumptuous problem statements that are also quite high level. If you are actually familiar with the product enough to at least come up with these problem statements, then I think you're actually doing well so far. And that's, again, part of the point. Next, you're going to want to actually use the prioritization framework on each problem statement to justify which one you want to actually tackle. So keep in mind, if you feel one of these problems are at core more important than the rest, despite the prioritization framework, then just go for it. This is all part, again, of de-risking. Now, alternatively, you could also just skip the problem identification part and just go straight to solutioning with the mindset of how are we going to make this experience for this user segment 10x better. Sometimes this is actually more conducive for innovation and helps escape the narrow thinking mindset from overthinking. All right, so this is actually now where we get to the fun part. And I just want to recap, you'll either have arrived at the stage of solutioning, either by first defining the problem statement that you're going to be tackling, or you would have skipped the problem statement altogether and just have come here directly from identifying your target user. So now, without any concrete research we've done on our competitors, we're going to be basing this mostly off intuition. And remember, intuition is built off our personal experiences, which you may have gotten from either using a product in your domain, or in this domain that you're gunning for, or by talking to your users. So intuition is kind of like a data point, but it's a data point that actually isn't measurable in any way. But this ambiguity is actually going to be key to allowing you to think of creative, innovative solutions down the line. The next thing I'll highly recommend is for you to get a pen and paper ready. I think it's totally different to do this on paper than it is actually to be typing this up somewhere. You'll want to actually physically write out the solution. I think it's more conducive, again, to creativity, innovation. And you're going to want to have a timer set to 3 minutes for your target user or your problem statement. And so what you're going to do is you're going to come up with 3 solutions within 3 minutes. And if you're not pleased by the end with the solutions that you've come up with, you can then give yourself a second chance. But we're going to reduce the timer to 2 minutes for you to write as many solutions as you can. And then if you're still unsatisfied with the solutions you have, you can try it again a third time. So we're going to reduce the timer to 1 minute. So this added pressure in this kind of like, pressure cooker per se, this added pressure and stress should actually help you to innovate new solutions on the fly. Note that you might actually be quite exhausted afterwards, but not to fret. We're actually almost done here, at least for the solutioning side of it. So after writing out your solutions, prioritizing them, you can go ahead and prioritize them based on the framework that I have provided here. And that framework, again, is going to be based on value, impact, frequency of use, as well as the effort. And when I say effort, it's not just from an engineering standpoint of how much effort you think it's going to take to build. But again, if you're building something like, if your solution is something like an Uber, also consider the very real reality of you having to operationalize to set up, like how you're going to get the drivers in, how you're going to battle, potential regulations, how you're going to, yeah. So operationalizing it is also part of the effort to actually build the solution. If you had a brainstorming partner along the way, one thing that I think is going to be really helpful to making that solution even better is to share that solution with a partner. Just casually talk about it. Just tell them what it is, what he thinks, or what he or she thinks. And then just build on top of it. Have that partner also share their solution with you. Casually talk about it. Try to see if you can provide any suggestions to make it better. This is really conducive, again, I think, to innovation and also to just making something better and better and better. As you give feedback, these suggestions will actually should come naturally to you as you guys start providing more feedback to each other. So the next thing after that, so after you've kind of like done this brainstorming exercise, you've prioritized based on the framework on what the best solution is probably going to be, and then you share it with your partner. The next thing I want you to do is do this other exercise, what I call the 8-star experience exercise. So this was actually invented by the Airbnb founders who had actually come from a design background. But it's something that I really love. So the concept is that a 5-star experience is actually bullshit. A 5-star experience is actually what a customer already expects out of the app. It's actually the standard expected experience. And if you mess that up, you're going to get something lower, anything lower, like a 4-star or a 3-star. If you consider even on an Uber app, right? A 5-star experience driver, that's great. But if you get like a 3.8, that's actually considered terrible, and you'll likely want to find another driver. And if you think about it, 3.8 is actually more like, that's actually more like a 75% approval rating, but that's actually considered terrible. So again, 5-star is actually expected. So the trick is, how can we make this into a 6-star experience? How can you go above and beyond to deliver an experience on your solution such that it would exceed the 5-star rating threshold if, for whatever reason, you actually had an option to exceed the limit on the Uber app? So as you start to think and to brainstorm and share that with a partner or by yourself, and you start thinking about it, to open your minds to the realm of possibilities. And this is going to help you unwind a little bit by removing some of the constrictions. You can have a certain hypothetical scenario where you're in power. So, for example, let's assume that you're God, and or that you literally command all the resources in the world, since you are like perhaps the richest person on earth, or that you have a magic wand, that can poof out anything you want. So now go brainstorm for the next 2 minutes. And by then, when you start thinking about that 6-star experience that you can make, completely unwinded with the ability to bypass any barrier on resource constraints or reality constraints, you'll probably have a bit of a kick-ass solution that can probably excite someone like a customer or a user. But wait, we're actually not done here. Now that you have this amazing 6-star experience, in this solution, how do you go ahead and build a 7-star experience for the user? What about an 8-star experience? What about 9 stars? So you keep going. And after writing out all those solutions, as you continuously think about how you can continuously improve that experience with that value proposition on that solution that you have started out with, and that 5-star, you'll probably have something that actually truly delights your customer, even if it could be a little bit outrageous. So you now have a list of 6, 7, etc. star experiences for your solution. Now this is where your magic and your hustle as a product manager or creator or founder actually comes in. How can you unblock this barrier between this idea and reality to make it happen? What kind of technology solution or operational or business implementation can you do to actually make the solution a reality? That's on you. But I think you would have a pretty good idea as to what you need to do, to accomplish that next level innovative creative solution that's really going to blow people's minds. So this is the last step, the finalized step of de-risking. And this is, and I think this is something that always holds true. So now that you have your potential solution, you need to test it. And the best test would actually be with a high fidelity mock. I think personally that a low fidelity mock will not work here because it would subtract from that 8-star experience that you might have just come up with. What we're really looking for here is a true product market fit with as true of a test as possible. So that's where high fidelity mocks, I think, is going to come really, really key in mind. And so when you're thinking about how to get a high fidelity mock, you can use either Figma or Sketch to design the solution, or collaborate with the designer to work with you to scope the design of this potential solution to simulate that experience. And that's what we're gunning for. We're looking to simulate that experience in a prototype. If it's an app, yeah, again, you can use Figma, Sketch to build the UI, use InVision or Figma to then make the prototype, and then have the user try the app. And also just taking a step back, this solution that you built doesn't have to be an app. Again, a company like Grab or Uber, these are actually just operational companies that are aided through tech. It could have more, you could have more of a real life operational test to validate that solution that you have that's going to deliver that 8-star or 9-star experience. So some key tips here if you have a specific question in mind, ensure you ask it with a non-leading question when you're doing your user interviews, when you're researching on that specific solution. And if you're doing a usability test, then just observe, listen to their open feedback and thoughts, and then just unblock them if they say that they're stuck in the experience. It might have been a little bit confusing for them. And then just ask questions at the end and on how they actually felt about the solution. So here you'll actually likely get your first piece of critical feedback and insight that will force you to then iterate on your solution based on whatever problems that user has with the prototype that you just showed them. So you'll actually start getting some problems and some needs, and this is actually a good thing. This is actually where things actually start becoming a lot more straightforward. So here you can just continuously iterate, improve incrementally based on the feedback received, try out new ideas on the solution that you might have come up with based on the new insights that you got from testing. And you'll just continuously improve the solution until you get to a point where you'll probably feel confident about it after it starts truly delighting your user. And I think when I say truly delighting or really validating based on that high fidelity experience, usually there is no set criteria or rule for how you'll just know, but I'll just say you'll likely know. You'll likely know when someone's being dishonest with you. Maybe they say, oh, I would totally use this, but maybe they're being nice about it and they're not actually truly excited about it. But when someone is actually truly excited about your solution, you will see that spark of emotion in them. And it will be just very apparent and clear that they really are excited to use your solution because it is probably going to be a new experience for them. It is probably going to be 10x better than what they're currently using. Or just might have fit for other reasons. But again, it is something that I think you'll know. But the biggest disservice you can do for yourself in a situation like this is actually be dishonest with yourself. So, you might have actually spent a lot of this time coming up to this point of the solution. Again, you also had invested a little bit in this high fidelity experience when you're testing. The biggest disservice you could have done for yourself is being dishonest with yourself because you actually fell in love with your own solution. The sunk cost fallacy is already there. Maybe you don't want to believe that the solution is not going to work anymore because you've already invested so much time getting to this point. So just be aware of these potential traps when you're validating and de-risking. Because I think when it comes to the biggest threat to killing your chances on the solution being a success, it actually could be you. And I think for most founders and for most product managers, it really is just on them. And I will say another thing for most product managers, if you are a product manager, I think 90% of product managers already have or are working on a product that already has product market fit. The other 10% are not. They're probably going to be creating something new. And so again, for the 90%, maybe you won't get punished so hard for something like this because you can leverage off the strengths and the traction that the company already has. Although I wouldn't recommend that, of course. But for the other 10%, I think this is really crucial and critical because you could be making a very big mistake whereby your team would lose confidence in you for building the wrong solution. And if you're a founder, I think arguably even more is at stake here. You'd be losing the most valuable resource, and that's time. Second most valuable resource is money, but the most valuable resource you would have been wasting is time. So yeah, don't let your ego get in the way here because that will only just end up hurting you when the purpose is really just to be de-risking the solution as much as possible. So that's pretty much it. Thank you, everyone. I hope this session has given you the confidence and excitement to try brainstorming using this methodology. And I certainly hope it delivers high value and exciting ideas that help bring you and your companies reach the next level. Thank you.